Gotta be careful, well, you won't ever do that. These are fingers locked.
Yes. I've done that for you.
That's why I keep mine up.
We're all kind of, I never talk about
Well, sure.
Thank you. With knitting or crocheting, that's why I gotta make a big butt out of you. Thank you well for teaching my son. We were just.
I just never try to blanket make the time we get out here.
Big enough for you to roll around?
So that's my girl. I had to make a new sheet. Make sure I catch myself. You know. I can see one time.
All rise.
It's great. Dear God, we come this evening. Again, thank you for this day. Thank you for our freedoms and ability to gather here. We do pray specifically for this meeting tonight. If you would help us and guide us as we're working on a significant issue and a problem. Just pray for your wisdom. We thank you for each person here, Lord, as we're dealing with firemen and admission. We thank you for them and their work to protect us and keep us safe all the time, 24 hours a day. We thank you for that. Again, we just ask for your help tonight. In your name we pray. Amen.
Mr. James, you lead us in pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Walker, we have a roll call, please.
Steve Arnott.
Here.
Here with you. Mike Scipio. Ray Hudson.
Here.
Doug Richmond.
Here.
Connie Thompson.
Present.
Greg Wolf.
Here.
Jim Hughes.
Here.
Linda Wallace.
I'm here.
Quorum present, I declare the special meeting of the City of Dunbar Council, February 7th, 2019, in order. The agenda tonight is very specific about one topic, that's the Fireman's Pension Fund. We've got Blair Taylor from the West Virginia Municipal Pension Oversight Board is going to be discussing where we are in our fund right now and the options that we have to try to meet the obligation to the firemen in the future. And so that would be the basis of his presentation, and then he can accept questions as he can dictate whether he wants to take questions during the presentation or he wants you to wait a little bit until he's had a chance to get through the meeting. This is being live streamed, so you'll be able to go back and review what transpires tonight, digest it a little better, and maybe understand a little more fully. I guess there will be a lot of information put out, so we need to get an understanding. We want everybody to understand fully where we are, how we're going to solve the problem. So, with that, Mr. Taylor.
Stand, because it's easier. I got too many pieces of paper. Be able to talk to
the firemen here as well as the council. I passed out specific pages of the latest actuarial study that we have, which is for the year beginning July 117. Our actuarial studies are always a year behind, also 2 years behind as the year progresses. The reason for that is the actuary wants to have audited information before they put together an actual study. And it also is because how the state code requires collections of the premium tax allocation, or the premium tax, and how we allocate that, and when we allocate that. Because of all those time frames, it just forces your actual study to be between a year and a half behind. A lot of people ask me questions about that. But just as an example, the premium tax surcharge on all fire and casualty insurance premiums across the state. Basically, if you have car insurance, you pay a casualty premium on that. If you have homeowners insurance or renters insurance, there's fire and casualty insurance surcharge on that. That's collected on a calendar year basis. It's collected by the insurance commission, and quarterly they transfer the portion that is used for our pension plans, which is basically 65 basis points of that 1%. It's a 1% surcharge. 65% of that 1% is allocated to the oversight board for use to allocate to pension plans. We spend from collections. That means the actual studies that we pay for, my staff's salaries, and the operations of my office are all taken off the top of that calendar year collection. Now, why is it calendar year? I don't know, but the legislature set it on a calendar year basis. So the monies that we collected in calendar year 18 will be what we allocate September 1 of 19. All right? So we've got, and it's really not all that important for you all, but just to understand, we've got multiple years that we're dealing with all at the same time. Right? Not only in terms of collections and interest and various other things. We do invest these dollars in the investment states, not investment management, it's actually foreign treasury investments. This year we've actually been getting 2.5% rate of return, which is good. This year, for the first time, we're going to be able to see that the interest being earned on all of the funds are almost enough to pay for probably about half of the total cost of operations of the office, which includes the actual studies and the staff. So we've got a very lean office. We have 3 people, myself and 2 other people. My entire board are volunteers, and none of them ask for sort of reimbursement for travel or anything like that. We run last year, and we've been audited every year since 2012, and every year we come up with a modified audit. Last year, our audit indicated that we used roughly about 3.5% of our total collections for the running of the office. So our indirect cost is incredibly low. I like to keep it that way because the less money that we spend on the office, the more money that we then allocate to the fire and police pension plans across the state. Okay, so for this year, we're working off the September 118 allocation. We allocated $158,205 to the folks to this plan. And you don't have that with you. Okay, that's something else that I brought just as an aside. But we allocated $158,000. You can access that every time the city makes a payment to the pension plan. You can bill me for a pro rata share of that $158,000. You currently don't do that. I will say that if you look in the code, if you look at 82219, it does require you to make monthly payments to the pension plan. So you guys should be receiving monthly payments from the city into the plan. And as soon as that monthly payment is made, please invoice me, because you invoice me, or you tell me how much you paid in the plan, and we'll give you a pro rata share of $158,000. Go again into your pension plan. The pension plan can use those dollars to hopefully generate interest or generate earnings, and that also will help your plan. Especially if you're getting funded so poorly funded, pretty much everything that goes in comes right back out. So I want to get the state money in your hands as quickly as possible. That's not why you asked me to come here tonight, but I wanted to make you aware that you need to be doing that. You to date have gone down 33% of that 158. You distributed 52,000, almost $53,000 to you, about 105 left. And you did that, we requested that on October 18th. So we need to be doing that on a more frequent basis. All right, so the pieces that I copied from the actual study, I brought one of those. It's about 54 pages long, and quite frankly, they're very complicated, and you have to have worked with an actuary, worked with actual services for a number of years to be able to really and truly get into that report. So what I tried to do was pull out some information that's relevant to you all. Under your current scenario, you're on what is called an alternative funding methodology. That methodology was allowed in the state code in 1991 by the legislature at the request of various cities around the state. When it passed, of the 53 plans, all, I believe, maybe 15 of them went towards the alternative plan. Because at the time, the municipalities were having difficulty paying their normal cost into the pension plan. The alternative plan, unfortunately, does not meet, actually, it's not an actually sound plan. What that means is, over time, and even that first year and even today, you're not putting into it enough to pay normal cost, which is the current pension payments, pay down that unfunded liability, and even with the state aid and the employee share, that's still not enough to grow the fund, to be fully funded. And these plans all were supposed to be fully funded by 2031, but the alternative funding methodology, because it's not actually sound, well, I don't have a single city using the alternative funding methodology that will be fully funded in 2031. And as of today, about half the plans are closed. The plans in blue have closed their plans to new members, and their new members are being placed into a new statewide plan, or statewide plan is municipal police officers and firefighters retirement system plan. And that plan is managed by and operated by the Consolidated Public Retirement Board, who manages all other state pensions. And that then becomes a state pension. So the police officers for the city of Dunbar, for at least that have been hired after you close your plan, they participate in that particular plan. If you choose at some point to close your fire pension plan, any new hires in your fire department would also go into that plan. That plan is a little less rich than the existing plan. If you have a 30-year employee in your current plan, they retire with 75% of their final left, the highest 12 consecutive months, provided that there's a 20% limiter in there on certain years. But roughly you can retire at 75% for 30 years. The new statewide plan, at 30 years, you retire at 67.5%. So the multiplier is different. For the first 20 years in the current plan, your members get 3%. In the state plan, for the first 20 years, they get 2.6%. There are other differences between those plans, and I don't operate that plan. I'm not responsible for that plan, so I don't have good information about all the nuances, the differences there. There are some differences that are actually more positive for your members, but there are some differences that are significantly different for your members also. It is harder to get a disability in that plan. However, if you do get a disability, if you're disabled in that plan, you have to be determined to not be able to do any work. And if that's the case, they will pay you 90% of your wages for life, basically. In this particular plan, in the current pension plan, if a member, they can go out on a temporary disability or permanent disability. They go out on permanent disability. It can be job related or non-job related, duty related or non-duty related. If it's, and in either case, that pays 60% of your wages. That then comes out of the pension fund. If it's duty related, then you can go out and work other jobs and not have your disability touched, so to speak. You still got that full disability from the municipal plan. If it's non-duty related, then if you can have another job, but for every $3 of income you receive from your other job, you lose $1 of your municipal pension. That used to be, there was a cap, every $3 above 7,500. Last year, we were able to get that raised to $18,200, which is current minimum wage. As minimum wage increases, that number, that figure will index upwards also. We felt that was when it was initially put in place back in the 90s or even the 80s, minimum wage total was 7,500. So we felt that was a good thing to do. So right now, this year, you're required to put on 107% methodology, you're required to put $475,000 on the plan. That just number just continues to increase to 107%. It doesn't matter if you have 7% growth in your city, if you have 1% growth in your city, or if you have negative growth in your city, you have to put 107% into the plan every year. And you've been doing that every year since 1991. At some point, that becomes not feasible to continue from a financial perspective. All the while, the pensioners and the active members are still paying into the plan, and the pensioners are still drawing out. Your plan, is basically the scenario where just about everything going in the plan is turned around and coming back out of the plan, and that means that your plan has no ability to maintain its assets and continue to grow its assets. Probably your investment advisors are a little scared to invest in the market as much as they could, because with any losses, could be catastrophic to the existing pension numbers, or excuse me, the existing retirees that are there, and catastrophic from a city perspective, in that if the plan goes to zero or has no assets, then the city will be on the hook for paying those pension plans, so those pensions. In the city of Huntington and in the Circuit Court of Cabell, there is already a ruling that says, and there was a time when the city of Huntington had some real bankruptcy problems, or was close to being bankrupt, and their fire pension board, the retirees of the fire pension sued the city in circuit court. Circuit court ruled that the pensioners had to be paid before debt service was paid and before city employees were paid their payroll. Now, they never got to that point because they were able to borrow from the utility board to make it all work for that particular time. But there was a couple of months that it was extremely scary for the city of Huntington, its employees, as well as its pensioners. That doesn't mean that a circuit judge in Kanawha County would view the same way, but because that's out there, it certainly is an order that's out there, and they often can look in other circuits and sometimes follow what the other judges across the state have done. I don't say that to scare you. I just say that, we know that we have an issue here, that unless the city has an unlimited amount of money that it wants to put into the existing system and leave the system open, our projections from the actuary perspective don't see you increasing very quickly, very fast, just because the 107% is not enough to sustain that. Yes, sir.
Just for sake of, so we can all work on this, I think we're all, so you know too, for your presentation, I think we're all in agreement that we can't keep alternative. We understand,
Okay.
We understand that, so we need,
Okay.
and we understand, and we've talked to the fire too, that I think they understand as well, new hires are going to have to go to state, or we'll go under. So we're really looking for your advice between optional and conservation.
Okay.
Does that sound fair to everybody? We're already that far, so you can.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I need to start at the very beginning.
Because we
go forward, or
we worked a lot this last year to get to that point where we realize we don't have the answers, but we know the problem.
All right. So under current West Virginia law, there are two methods that you can close a pension plan. You can close it using the optional methodology, and you can close it using the conservation methodology. And I'm going to get into specifics for you just a minute. But in a nutshell, if you close the optional plan method, you pass a resolution that is required by the Consolidated Public Retirement Board, the law. That resolution is then sent to the Consolidated Public Retirement Board within 10 days of you passing it, and it has to be reflected in your minutes within that time. You send the meeting minutes and the resolution to them. They then ultimately accept that, and the month after they've accepted that resolution, then you're allowed to close your existing plan. Okay? If you're in the middle of a hiring scenario for the fire department, if you hire somebody before you get word back that they've accepted the closure, that member will go into the old plan and will have additional unfunded liability for that plan. So my recommendation, if you're thinking about closing the plant and you're thinking about hiring officers or firefighters, excuse me, that you either do the firefighter hires now, which will add unfunded liability to the plant, or you wait until you close the plant using one of the two methods and hire them later to go into the state plant. That's an individual policy decision that the city will have to make. But I just want to encourage you that if you're in the middle of that and you put somebody on the payroll before you get the information back from the state, they're in the system. We've had a city that did that and basically boosted unfunded liability in a way that they were not anticipating. The optional funding methodology, when you close that plan, allows the assets in the trust to continue to be used to pay pensions. Okay? So right now, I think 760, well, as of July 1, 17 in Dunbar, there was 805,000 in assets. Josh, what do you have in assets right now?
849, 141.
Okay, so it hadn't changed a whole lot, $829,000. That $829,000, if you close the plan using the optional methodology, that money can be used to pay pensions. Okay? If you close under the optional methodology, or excuse me, under the conservation methodology, that money is frozen. That trust is frozen. When I say frozen, will be dollars that go into that trust. 1.5% of the members' pay that's currently all going to pensions. You're either paying 7% or 9.5%. For 7% guys will continue to pay 7%, but of that 7%, 1.5% would go to the trust fund, and the remaining 5.5% would go to the city's benefit account to pay pension benefits. If you've got guys that have been hired at the 9.5% rate, 8% will go to the city, or the city payment for benefits, and the other 1.5% would continue to go to the trust fund. Those trust fund dollars, in addition to some portion of the state aid, would go into the trust fund to build that up. And hopefully, over time, that plan would have to become fully funded in 35 years for the date of closing, using conservation. So 35 years from today, 2037, 2047, something like that. If you use the optional methodology, then it has to be fully funded by 2050. That's a hard date that's in the statute. Okay? So the optional methodology is hard date 2050. And the conservation methodology is 35 years after the date of close the farm. We're getting close to a point where conservation is not, whether optional will be tougher to do than conservation, but there's risks with the conservation policy. The risk is you will be paying the current pensioners and all future pensioners, these guys that are sitting right here, you'll be paying them from your city's general fund those benefits. Okay? Now, when I say that, you'll have to set up in effect a benefit account. That benefit account would take what you normally put in the city budget for fire, that would go there. All right? Some portion of the state aid would go there. And this year, I think as I looked at that, it was about 58% would go in the city benefit account, and 40 to 42% would go to the business. I'm looking on table 8.4. 40.82% of the premium tax would go to the accumulation account or trust fund, and 59.18% would go to the city benefit account to help pay benefits. Okay. Now, let me caution you that that percentage will fluctuate. Okay, it's not a fixed percentage for the next 35 years. It will fluctuate based on how well the assets in the frozen account do. Okay, so if you've got a good year for your pensions and you generate pretty good rates of return, as the year ending July 1, 17, Dunbar generated a 7.3 rate of return. We estimated the discount rate would be 4.5%. We actually exceeded that almost 3.4%, which is wonderful. And if we looked at fiscal year ending 18, I would imagine we got a negative. Most plans do, okay? And so did the state's investment management board. There's an article on the front page, or no, the front page of the local section yesterday or the day before, I guess it was Tuesday, that showed that the state investment board lost, it was 4.3% last fiscal year, okay? But if you look at the year prior to that, they had a 15.8% rate of return, okay? And the year before that, it was like 9.7, but if you look at their year over 10 years, they've got almost a 10%, 10.7% rate of return on 10 years, every year, which is, that's phenomenal. I don't know what your all's is, but if you close them using the conservation methodology, that trust is isolated. The only dollars that will come out of that trust at that point is if one of these members leaves the department. And when I say leave, they resign and leave. Because at that point, you're going to pay them back what they put in. No interest, but pay them back. And if they were paying into the old trust fund, you would take those dollars out of the old trust fund. If they were also paying into the benefit account of the city, some dollars would come from there. So you have money coming from both places. And that was put in the code across the city of Charleston. After they closed their issues in conservation methodology, they had a couple of people resign, and it became difficult to try where those dollars came from. So they asked us to sponsor that, and we did. The schedules that are in here, if you made this change today, if you go to page 3-2 of my document, you're currently paying $475,000, that's a municipal share, to get the 158. If you go to the optional funding methodology, your cost for this year will jump to $769,000, almost $770,000. If you go to the conservation methodology, your cost actually drops by about $300. But the conservation methodology, if we look at those tables, the projections, the conservation methodology will increase over the next 35 years to a point where because as more people retire, you're going to have more dollars paying those benefits to pay those folks out. Under the optional methodology, you start at the 769, almost 770. Let me look at your schedule. That may go up a little bit, but then over the course of time, that ultimately will go down.
It'll peak in 2023 at 800,000.
Okay, so it peaks 2023 at 800,000, and after that it goes down. Now, all of you all were elected to a 4-year term? So you're probably thinking about in 4-year increments. Okay? Because that's what most the legislature does. They think in 2-year increments, and the senators think in 4-year increments. But the reality is, that's what's gotten us into the problem that we're in. We think about just this year, not next year, not the following year. And so we buried our heads in the sand, so to speak, and we've continued to see underpayments made to the pension plan. And now we're at a crisis situation point where if we don't do something, then there's a possibility that within another 10 years, you won't have any assets in the plan. And then all of you all that retire, plus all the people that are retired before you, beneficiaries, they're going to be knocking on the door of the city to make those payments. And if you come to the state to ask for help at that point, the state's not going to help you.
Can you repeat that one more time?
If you come to the state to ask for help at that point, it's not going to, the state doesn't have those dollars anyway, and you wouldn't be the first to come and ask for help.
Do we all understand that?
So that's
That's what we're here. We do this time.
But I will say this, the state does help you every year. $158,000 in state aid every year. Now that number will fluctuate based on the total collections and the total number of members you have. Here's one more thing, and you already reaped this benefit in the police pension plan. And I don't know how many active members in the police pension plan you have in the new statewide plan, but you guys have been closed for 3 or 4 years now.
8 years.
Okay, so how many police officers have you hired in that period of time?
Probably 7 of them are in that new period.
Probably.
So those seven police officers.
There's probably only about 10 or 12 that are vested in the plan.
Okay, So you got 10,
The rest
12
of them quit before they got vested.
Right. So you got 10 or 12 that are vested in the plan, but you got 7 new guys that are working for you. And when we go to apply for state aid, and Connie knows this because she fills the paperwork out for us, you list your active members in the old plan, in the old police plan, and you list your active members in the new police plan. You list your retired members and disabled members in the old plan. And if you have either retired or disabled or death benefit scenario in the new plan, you get to count all of those people towards getting money for the old police pension fund. The same thing will happen in the fire center. If you close your plan, you'll get to count any new hires, any new firefighters are hired and are paying in the new system, they will be counted as active firefighters for the purposes of drawing down state aid. So just because you close a plan doesn't mean that you're going to lose state aid in terms based on population. That was put in as part of the initial bill that passed in 2009, and that was put in because the city of Huntington couldn't afford to close the plans, lose those active members who were in a new plan. So the state wrote into the law that you count every active police officer or every active firefighter, regardless of what pension plan they're in, you get to count them for the purposes of state aid. That's critical. And I think that's really positive, quite frankly. Because if not, we'd be looking at what you've got left, and that would be going down over time. Now, most of your members are fairly young. You just had 1 or 2 that was in the over 15-year range. Everybody else has got less than that. So you're going to be around for a while, hopefully a long one. And so the number of retirees you're going to get coming up, maybe 1. And then you're going to have a long stretch of not having any new retirees. Okay. Now, granted, there's still a COLA concept with pensions. And what I mean by that, there's a cost of living concept. Cost of living concept is enforced whether you're in an optional plan or still open in alternative to the conservation plan. The law requires those COLAs to be granted as long as your fund is projected to be solvent over the next 15 years. If you close via the optional methodology, you're always going to be projected to be solvent over the next 15 years, as long as the city's making the payments. If you close on the conservation methodology, same thing, as long as the city's paying its beneficiaries, or paying the pensioners that are already retired, and then the assets are growing. If the assets have an off year, then the percentage of the state aid the following year will increase to go to the asset account and decrease to the benefit account or the city general fund account. So the city in that situation will have to come up with more money to make it work. You'll have a sales tax. Did you dedicate any of that sales tax to police and fire pensions? Some cities have done that. I'm a resident. I'm a resident of the city of Charleston. The city of Charleston dedicated 0.5% of their city sales tax to police and fire. And believe me, they're going to need every dime of it and then some. They closed using the conservation methodology. And when they closed back in 11 or 12, using that, they had good projections that they would have enough money to last until about fiscal year 19. And then the funds, that extra 0.5% that they've been bankrolling through the years, would start not being enough to pay. And so our new mayor that was elected and took office just recently, her administration is facing a shortfall in these plans because there was not enough in the reserves, and that will have to come from someplace. It will come from Parks and Rec, it'll come from street paving, it'll come from, I don't know, whatever other lines there are in the budget. But once you've closed your plan, you are statutorily obligated to make those payments, just like you are now, but those payments are going to be larger. I can get into the specific detail of it, but you all have some ideas I think that you put forth. I'll be happy to try to answer questions about those or anything that I've said tonight. Let me say one other thing. I think that as difficult as it is to talk about closing a pension plan, obviously of our 53 plans, almost half of them have closed. I've had this conversation in at least 15 cities, maybe more. It's a difficult conversation to have in front of members because I'm here to support you all. But I'm also know that if you all don't have their support or don't have the funding, then it's not going to work. And so sometimes we get to a point where you have to accept the fact that the plan needs to close. I think you're at that point, quite frankly, and I applaud you all for getting to that point and continuing to talk about that point. Now, I'll try to answer any questions you have with regard to how to close, what to do, which one is best. I think I don't think conservation is the best way to go, but it may be the best way for you all to go. The only conservation plans that we have operating in the state right now are Charleston Police, Charleston Fire, and Fairmont Police, and Fairmont Fire. So we have 4 of 53 plans that are closed using the conservation methodology. The other ones, so if we have 20, let's say 23 or 24 closed, 20 of them are using optional, and the remaining 4 use conservation. And then everybody else is on option. Or, excuse me, everybody else is on alternative. And they're continuing to pay the 107%. I guess there's one other option you have out there. Let me say this. You could keep your plan open and just pay far more than this $475,000 is required. You could bump that up to, I don't know, pay an extra $500,000 every year for the next 9 years, and then maybe be able to close it, and your cost would be a lot less. Okay?
Mathematically, that'd be the same almost on paper as the optional plan
It would, except
to the city budget side.
Except, right, I understand that. The only difference would be the plan would remain open and any new hires would continue to go into the plan, and there would be then
Continued liability.
continued liabilities, or liabilities would continue to grow. That's not it's not an option that I suggest to people, but it is a third option.
Now, the money that in the old account that's frozen, that's still eligible for investments, though, right? I mean, it's still can retire.
Absolutely. And you guys are the PB&T, is that right? Now, let's talk about this for a second. Is police with PB&T also?
Yes.
Okay, and because they closed via the optional methodology, the police retirees are paid directly by, and I guess PB&T does that. Do they do the 1099s or do you all do the 1099s?
They do.
They do, so they do it all. If you go to the optional, or excuse me, the conservation methodology here and start paying those pension benefits, those retirees from the state's share, you all will be doing those 1099s and you all will be responsible for all that because it's coming from you all. But if you do that, I would recommend that you think about renegotiating your contracts with BB&T or looking at one of the other investment advisors out there that can give you a better bang for the buck in terms of investment costs. I can't advocate where you should go or where you shouldn't go, but if you read the local paper, the local section of the paper about the investment management board recently, and that was like on Tuesday, I can tell you on this form that the latest set of data that we have, we have one plan in this set of data that invested with the investment management board, and that was the Bell Police Pension Plan. And for the year ending June 30th, 17, July 1, 17, they earned 15.9% at a 15.9% rate of return. You all had a 7.3% rate of return, which is good, but it doesn't touch 15.9. And
They have probably more money too, they can be more aggressive with their investment.
has nothing to do with
That
that.
has nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with that. Here's what it does have to do with, though. The investment management board, their assets, they invest $18.3 billion. And they are the investment advisor. In other words, they don't go with Fidelity or T. Rowe Price. They invest it themselves. And they invest 18.3 or $8 billion. Of that, 80% is pension funds. Those pension funds are the funds that I'm in. If you're in public employees retirement system, teachers, judges, EMS, state troopers, deputy sheriffs, new police officers and firefighters, all of that. They invest all of that. And they charge the Bell Police Pension Plan There's a $500 annual fee, and they charge them 33 basis points on their total investment. So 33 basis points is 1/3 of 1%. And that's what they charge them. Now, they don't do what BB&T does. They don't pay pensions, and they don't do 1099s. They just manage money. But quite frankly, for the difference between what your investment provider is doing and what they do over time, you might be able to find somebody in the private sector to do the payroll, or the retiree payroll, and pay them to do the 1099s and the whole 9 yards. Just a thought. Again, I'm not saying you have to use these folks or should use these folks. And this year, they lost money. But I'll guarantee you lost money in BB&T also, unless you had it all in cash. If you had it all in cash, you made money. You didn't make much money.
We actually did pretty well this year.
This year?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I have the numbers. We paid in $5,500 a year for what we paid last year.
Okay, and
To
fees?
both sides of it.
Okay.
And we gained 141,000.
You gained in earnings 141,000, or what was put in?
I'm sorry. No, yeah, that's,
That's pure earnings.
yes. I got the numbers right here from
What's your balance approximately today? You said.
well, as of December 31st, it was 829.
So really, you really make 25,000 for the year.
Well, they said December was a bad month. I guess it dropped really bad.
Dropped 8% December.
And then it bounced back up, so. But this is the numbers right from that.
Okay, so you made on 800,000, you made $149,000. $141,000 in profit last quarter. Wow, I want to go invest with them.
Now, like in 2008, we lost 203,000.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done a lot of losses, but
But you
actually last year was a good year.
Okay. And that's a calendar year basis, not a fiscal year basis.
Correct.
Okay. So we're talking apples and oranges. I'm talking fiscal year basis. So there may be some change, but, and I'm not saying you should go with these folks.
Yeah.
What I am saying is if the city closes the plan using the conservation methodology, there'll be no dollars coming out of your plan, only dollars going in.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be paying somebody to do all the other stuff. So you need to renegotiate your fees with them to do about, and we actually track all of the investment fees that are charged to all of the plans. And that, if it's not on our website yet, it will be shortly. So you can go out there and look and see what all the brokers and banks are charging the various plans. And I would encourage you to do that. That's an aside, but if you close that way, I would really encourage you to look at that. And that's, you all, as trustees, have that responsibility, not to see. Right.
And another thing I was going to ask, if we do the conservation method and somebody goes off on disability, is that added to what they're paying out, right? Or does that come out of the old side?
It comes out of the city's. The city will start paying all retirements, whether they're disability retirements or regular retirements, or benefit or survivor benefits. They will pay it all.
And that goes for short-term disabilities also.
Yes, sir. If you remember back to this last presentation, whatever is set up or in that investment pool that you have right now, it would stay in there up until the last people in that plan get paid out, and then their benefits would be paid out out of that, whatever's left in that plan.
In the 35 years that you have to become fully funded, if you happen to become fully funded sooner than that, great, but probably would not from an actual perspective. At the end of that 35-year period, then all the benefits are paid from that fund because it's fully funded. You don't have anybody paying in anymore. You only have people that are being paid out. And it's actually from a mortality perspective, they look at everybody and have an age that they think you're going to live to. Some people live longer, some people live shorter. And that's how, over time, comes out that theoretically everybody will be paid out completely. And if it determines that the fund is getting low, then the city would just have to kick in more dollars because there at that point there's no money coming from the members. Okay, but that's down the road ways. It's not an ugly picture. I agree with you.
Blair,
Yes, sir.
what I think the easiest way for us to understand is, right now, you can almost say the alternative plan is like an interest-only whole loan. You know, you get a home loan, you're just paying interest only, it's really low, but you're gonna get smacked down the road. That's what we're in now, is the alternative plan. Optional plan, would be like if you were going to buy the same house, but you throw enough cash ads, you're gonna pay it off in 15 years. Higher payments, a very wise investment. Conservation plan, which is probably what we have to go just to look out our money, but it would almost be like buying the house on a 30-year loan. You're still much safer than interest only. You're using wisdom, but you just can't afford that high payment, so you got to stretch it out to 30 years, which in this case is 35. That's the way I think it's easiest for us to understand. We're in interest only right now, dangerous. We'd like to do the 15-year loan, so to speak, but we really can't swing that, but at least we can look at the ones that we can do 35 years.
So if you look at
this
it,
one.
so if you look at it from that perspective,
That was just, in my mind, easy way for me to understand the differences and the risk involved in the three ways.
so 474 this year, and that will jump.
You can follow, you have that figure right here, now it shows in 2020, we'll go to 508 over what we're on now.
Yep.
If we go to conservation, it's 498, but if we do that optional, which would be like the 15-year thing, a real stable, it jumps to 789.
If you go with the conservation methodology, you don't get above $1 million. You do tap out at about 913,000 in 2041. The projected employer contribution will start increasing. It will continue to increase. It may not be the 7% jump, but it does continue to increase. 498, 498, 500, 512, 525, 531, 534, 535 for a couple of years, 533, 567, 597, 635. And ultimately it goes up to $913,000. So it's not as egregious as 107%, but I want you to understand it does have a measurable increase over time. And you all, just like in 1991, when the council made the decision to go with the 107% methodology, you all are dealing with, whatever decisions you all make in the next couple of months, the people that are here 20 years from now, and it won't be you all likely, although it could be, and then you may have one or two that are around, they will live with your decisions now. The sooner, the more money you can, it's just like paying down a house. The more money you can throw at it, the better off you're going to be. But there are no good solutions, and doing nothing is also not a good solution.
And I think we're all in agreement, that there's no solution. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement by July 1, we'll be on one of these new things. I think we're all there. So we realized, all of us around the state realized we've got to stop kicking it down the road. So I think we're ready on that. We're just trying to decide which way, but I think we're all there. Does that sound fair, Mayor? We're all.
I think it's a problem. We've been kicking down the road too long.
I mean, whether we take optional or conservation, the city has the obligation of making the payments every single month. And that's going to, just like we inherited the problem, the next administration will have the same obligation. So it's not something that, I think the prudent thing is to, and I don't know if it's the plan the council wants to go with or not, but I had thrown out last year of raising the municipal fee by $25 a quarter. That would generate $100 a year per household, and in some way, shape, or form in the ordinance and code dedicate that money for perpetuity goes into satisfying this problem. We talk about the 1% sales tax. Dunbar's had zero growth financially for the last decade. Our budget has remained almost exactly the same for probably the last 5 to 6 years.
And yet costs continue to go up. And-
Yeah, pay raises, cost of doing business, everything escalates. So what that 1% sales tax did was allow us to fix some streets, make some improvements. So if we take that 1% and put it into the fireman's pension fund, then we're basically shutting down the rest of the services to the citizens. So,
And I'm not suggesting that, I just was talking about what one city had done, and actually several cities have done that, but some cities have chosen not to do that. But what, I like your idea of passing an ordinance to raise something
right,
and basically codifying what those dollars are gonna be spent for.
right.
Because another city council can come in behind you and change it, but it's tougher to change an ordinance than it is to just in the budget line, oh, well, we're not gonna pay this, we'll shift those dollars up here. But if it's, from an ordinance perspective, it's just statutorily there,
Mhm.
it's much harder to take those dollars because they're not dedicated. So I like your suggestion, because that'll be beneficial for your plan and for everybody if we can, if something can be generated directly for paying. Otherwise, I've seen too many people who get into budget crunch and do it at home. Heck, I had X number of dollars set aside to pay down the house, but this jumped up, and so I had to fix this, and I had to do that, and all of a sudden that extra money I was gonna put on the house ended up out the door, and I don't have anything to show for it. And that's easy to do in city government also, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'm concerned about is, I think there was a stretch that you all didn't get a raise for like 8 years. I mean, and we don't want to go back to the point where, our day-to-day revenue was hamstrung with obligations that we can't keep all the city employees up with inflation. I mean, it's just going backwards.
If you dedicate a source, then that's just off the table, and you do with it everything else.
Mhm.
And that still allows you 1%, whatever sales tax comes in to use to pay for streets or sewers or sidewalks or raises or, whatever, however you want to lay that out. I think you're wise to think about something. I don't think this will really help all that much, but I guess theoretically, if you had dollars that you could put in for a couple of years that were over and above what the minimum requirements are, and if they can be invested well and you get some good returns, then the cost of closing in a couple of years because you have greater assets in the fund will be a little less. But those are all a whole bunch of unknowns, and
I mean, that's what I was looking at when I read some things on the conservation plan, that if we did impose some type of a fee, whether it's $10 a quarter or $25 a quarter, it would, under the conservation plan, we could take that money and put it over and invest it, and then draw out of it when we get to the peak years.
Right.
Pretty much is what's happening.
And so in Charleston, that's what they're doing. They're taking that 0.5% sales tax, and it's been on the books for a number of years now. And they've been bankrolling it in a reserve account. Now, I don't know what cities have the ability to invest in, whether it's just cash and short-term investments, that you invest in the state's Board of Treasury investments. There's 2 or 3 funds there. And if you can generate some decent rates of return, decent as compared to whatever else we can pay outside of that, but that may be a great way to do it, because that's what Charleston's doing. They're going to that fund. Unfortunately, that fund dried up sooner than they anticipated. But so that 1%, that 0.5% will still go to that fund, and then they'll pull out and go from there. So if you had a dedicated source to put someplace like that, yeah, you could build up a little bit of reserve. It's not in the pension plan, but it's there for you to be able to pull out and pay benefits from, which is, that certainly would
I
work.
mean, we've basically created that account now with the state investment, where all of our delinquent municipal fees that are over a year old, we've been taking that and putting it into that fund. It hasn't accumulated to a lot of money yet, but it's, the concept is there and it's dedicated for that purpose.
And when it does, the interest is dedicated for that purpose.
It just keeps growing inside. So,
So,
think simplistically, in my mind, for us as a council, we need, not only in action, but in our brains to get around this, is to think first, understand what you're already, we gotta close this thing and go a different route. Second, are we gonna go with optional or conservation? And just this next phrase is my opinion. And I spent a lot of time looking at it. I think the only thing we can as a city do is conservation, simply because the realities of it, even though optional isn't better in the long run, but the reality is reality. Then, once we determine, okay, we're going to go conservation, then figure out how to set that account up and keep it funded with not only what we're putting in now, which for the first year or two will be what we're used to, but then also, as the mayor mentioned, find another revenue source to be building the assets, to have a slush fund invested until it meets. So like a three-phase in our minds. I'm not sure how we do the resolution in our minds. We agree, we got to close it, move forward with the new hires in the state plan, and we get this one closed so it doesn't kill us anymore. Then do we want to go optional or conservation? Again, I just shared my opinion on based on what I think from the information. But then how do we fund it? Step 3. Just a simple way of thinking of how to, because we kind of go around circles tonight and with a lot of information, but we don't have a plan. So.
Let me just make one more statement that I didn't make earlier. And it's again, it's a statement of the what ifs. What if you have a catastrophic situation in the fire department? And you either have a number of people that go on disability, a number of these gentlemen go on disability, or a number of deaths. God forbid that would happen. But if that occurred, the fund is on the hook for picking up however many more payments there are right away. And so the probability of that happening is very, very small, but it could happen.
But even under the current plan, if it happens, the same thing happens. There's nothing in there.
It would like that account.
Yeah, real fast.
Right. Well, the 800,000 that they have would continue to drain faster than yeah, you're exactly right.
It's going to strangle us whichever way it happens.
In the optional plan, though, if that would happen, you're still able to access that account, and all the benefits are paid out of that account. But as you put more money in that account, then the assets would grow. Let's say that happened 10 years down the road. You would have enough assets in that account to take care of that scenario. If it happens 10 years down the road and you're under the conservation methodology, it doesn't matter what's in there, frozen trust, it will continue to be frozen. But what you're paying in 10 years, which is whatever that amount is, will jump.
But there again, there's nothing really in a frozen trust is what a catastrophic event might get 9 months out of it. Given the.
I understand.
In the last 5 years, we've had 3 disabilities at one time. That's what worries me. I mean,
Well, as long as your cities, if you go with the conservation methodology, your cities not willing, they have to come up with payment at that point. So at that point, if you have that scenario, then whatever slush funds you've got, end up paying that until they get back to work, or 2 years, or permanent disability. And you're right, temporary can be up to 2 full years. And after that, you have to disable it on a permanent basis. Hopefully you don't go to that point.
I'm going to share why my comment about conservation, and I'd like to hear from some of the council. Their opinion. Mine is simple. Strictly as a conservative money person, the optional would be better long term. But if you look at the numbers on the chart, the first year, fiscal year ending 2020, we would have just shy of $800,000 in that first payment, which is almost $300,000 more than we can absorb at present. And realistically, even if you add these, like the mayor was talking about, for the fees, which would help fund a little bit of the conservation plan, there's no way for us to generate that kind of money. We can generate some money to help prop up the conservation plan, but I don't see any way without doing a major tax change, and then you got the businesses want to leave town. Because if you, to generate.
And that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, because to generate an extra 300,000 in, say, a third of a million, because you're running a little bit extra in there, That's real money, more than $25 per household, when only one out of every 3 households paid that to begin with.
Right.
So, that's my rationale, and anybody else can give their opinion or push back as to why you would like one or the other. I think the mayor, you kind of lean towards conservation also, just on the reality of it as well. I mean, there's, not I'm speaking for you, but I mean, it's just the reality.
We would have to definitely implement a much stiffer fee of some kind to generate $400,000 more within a year.
Yeah, and that's big,
And that's
tax burden.
I know,
that's just a reality. I don't know. One of the realities that Dunbar is facing, I talk census data all the time. We've gone from a population of 7,900 to 7,300 since 2010. We've lost 600 people in the city, and our occupied housing units is going down dramatically. If you look at all the vacant houses, issues they have to deal with, potential fire hazards with all of the stuff, it's a challenge where we're going to get the money. So one plan or the other plan, we know that the current plan, we're going to be upside down real fast.
The council have an opinion on the two between them, or?
I mean, I feel the same way. It'll be hard to come up with another $300,000.
So we can do it, it's just a matter of how we.
There comes a point where you squeeze the citizens too far. How do you, if you added 25 per address, or how we calculate that for the municipal fee per quarter, how much would that raise in here? Assuming 100%, then we have to slash it in a third because only a third paid. But if you did it by 100%, you know what that would be. How many?
Is it a third or more than that? Or less,
It's less than.
I was trying to run some
less
reports
than a third that don't
to
pay?
see how many accounts we built.
The sanitary board sends out roughly 3,800
Okay.
sewer bills a month. So
Is that
38.
counting West Dunbar, is that
No,
counting?
no, that's
Dunbar, I
just,
mean.
that's just Dunbar, 3,800.
Times 25 would be, well, it'd be about 100. Yeah, 100 for the year.
38,000. That's crazy.
You got 300.
380,000, it's $100 a year.
Yeah.
Times 30.
So if we had 100% participation, that fixes it. But that's not reality.
Right.
I mean, that's why we have that's why we have a law firm trying to collect delinquent fees now. We're behind $500,000. How far is it now, Colin?
It's about 400.
400,000. So
We're
we're making progress, but the point is,
But if you look at the conservation plan, we implement some form of an increase. We're starting off at 500,000, which we can absorb right now. And if we can put another 300,000 in there every single year,
to build up.
then, we're gonna be, in 10 years, you've got $3 million in there, so.
And to be safe, of that 380,000, you really only figure half of that. I mean, we can debate the numbers, but the average is every time they pick up garbage, that house pays, that house doesn't, that house pays, that house doesn't. So you slash it in half, and if we actually got 75%, we're doing even better. But realistically, we can only figure on half that money, which is 150,000, 165,000. Because if we plan, okay, we're gonna get 380,000, jump to the optional plan, within 1 year, we're back in the same boat again. Because half the people haven't paid it, we don't have the money, and once we make a choice, it's a one-time choice, correct, Lawyer?
It is a one-time choice.
See, we don't go to 600,000 until 31. So, I mean,
I'm agreeing with you, I just laid out all the numbers to see why.
What's your next term? When were you all elected to run your next term?
2021, all potentially new faces.
Okay. And that helps.
So anything we do has to be put in writing. and dedicated to that
Yeah.
specific reason, specific
That's what I
job.
was gonna ask,
Yeah.
10 years down the road, so we do the conservation fund. You have this account set up, is there something in writing or an ordinance that states this money is not to be used except for paying firefighter pension?
That's what had to be in
That
order.
has to be done, yes.
Yes, it's codified, but here's the problem. The city of Dunbar can decide, we're not gonna pay anything into the fire pension fund anymore, go upside down, and then, no, I mean,
That's what scares me.
but that's just
Well,
like
it's
having a
been figured
catastrophic event.
Well, I know, but that's happening in cities nationwide.
We would still be legally obligated to make the
Yes,
pension or
it's
cities,
still obligated to
even if
make
we
the
wasted that whole account, we still have to come up with the money, right?
you still have to make
Yeah,
the
because you
obligation.
guys would sue.
Yeah.
And the court would rule in your favor.
But that could be 2 years,
Excuse me?
that could be 2 years. So we're gonna be without payment for 2 years.
You're not gonna let it get to that point.
Yeah,
We don't have control.
You won't,
Well,
That's what we're trying to alleviate right now.
okay, as a fireman, or any other person out here, you will look at the assets of the city, just like you look at your report right there on an annual basis or quarterly basis or whatever. You all could be watching that. I mean, we expect you all to be the watchdogs, and, you all may not be around when it happens, but the next group of firemen coming in looking at it. You look at it, if it starts going south, then you start ringing the fire alarm at that point and bring attention to it before it gets catastrophic.
the other
I
thing is,
mean, it's,
In other words, threaten lawsuit.
if
to get
the city
attention.
stops paying the pensioners, stops drawing state aid, we're aware of that too. And we're knocking on the door saying, why are you stopped? And we can bring a lawsuit on your all's behalf. And we've actually been involved in some lawsuits so far. And we'll probably be in some more.
Legally, they're protected either plan, essentially. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, if you stop paying, we're gonna file suit on their behalf. And generally, when the state files suit, we have good reasons to file, and generally, the courts will look at that. I'm not
And
saying
from
that's
our
always the
side-
case, but
From our side, with this native fund codified, it would be hard to break it. I mean, you could do it, but it'd be hard to break it. But it would be actually harder than if we just quit paying into the optional fund.
Right.
Legally. So it actually makes it harder on us to break than optional, because optional, you're not in ordinance, this account is earmarked. It's just a line item in the budget. A line item in the budget can be snuck around and changed easy.
Oh, absolutely.
well,
We don't want to admit that, but you can.
you can do it, but the reality is, there's plenty of oversight that you're only gonna live under that rock for a short period of time, and then it's gonna come back and bite us, or whoever the administration is at the time. Yes, sir.
Can I give my just personal opinion?
Absolutely.
And I don't need answers or anything. I agree, we know we gotta do something. I've worked here 15 and a half years, so I've seen past administrations and everything. To me personally, this conservation method is the new term for alternative funding. It's kicking the can down the road, because it's not gonna be your problem in 20 years when we get to that $900,000 payment that we're gonna have to do. We did this 1% sales tax. We know what that's bringing in, roughly 200 grand, probably each quarter. It's hard for me to believe that $800,000, if we didn't have that enabled 2 years ago, that our city would be $800,000 back. I'm not saying all of it needs to go to our pension, but 200 grand would be a good throw in to help us out, starting out a little bit. The city is declining, we know that. Past practices, the city has had chances to grow. We have messed that up with annexations, businesses, not your all's fault, past administrations. But, like I say, it's just me personally, what I've seen working here longer than most of these guys. I feel like conservation is just kicking the can for someone else's problem in 10, 15 years. So.
I agree, it's not ideal.
Right.
I don't know if we have any other options though, as far as just the reality of it, to come up with that big of a difference. Because that would be every year, being the 300,000 right off the bat every year. I agree, it's not the wisest option.
The only ideal alternative we have is to be able to pay it all right now in one lump sum. And that's
Well, it's not possible. We all know
Right,
that's not
right.
reality.
And you know, that we have discussed this for 40 years. It's been the same thing over and over and over, but now it's come to the point
Yeah.
where you're all safe. Something has to be done.
Well, and that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
You were working there when alternative funding came up. It looked rosy and great for the city and everything. And here we're in this predicament.
I know.
And that's what I'm saying. I know we need to do something. I'm 110% behind that. But of the two choices, I know it's more money up front on alternative, but,
No, it's more money forever.
Not forever.
not forever.
Because the next employees that are hired come into the alternative. So the alternative.
No, they always do.
Maybe statewide.
The new employees are hired to go into the statewide system, and you pay currently 8.5% of their wages to the pension
But
system.
once we do that, the alternative doesn't exist anymore. It's shut down completely.
I'm sorry, I was using the wrong word. I meant optional. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was me, my fault. My
Okay.
on that. I meant
I was just-
optional. I meant optional. That's me, my fault.
Okay.
No, I meant
The
optional.
alternate stops.
Yes, alternative.
So
Okay.
conservation or options is the alternate stops, the optional or conservation starts, one or the other. But your new hires do go into that new statewide plan, and that's where you ultimately save some dollars. Because their pensionable amount is someplace, is codified between 8.5% and 10.5%. Can never go above 10.5%, can never go below 8.5%. It's currently at 8.5%. I didn't bring that card with me, but that plan is 164% funded right now. Last year was 180 something. They've got 300 and some members in it now, and it will just continue to grow.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, someone who is hired under the state peers program, are they like any other state employee? If they go to another fire department, they don't lose their, so if you transferred to South Charleston and you had three years in Dunbar, then you would still get your 3 years and you could continue to work in South Charleston.
Not
or
South
anybody-
Charleston, because South Charleston's using the local municipal.
Well, but anybody that has,
And let's say your police department, you hire a police officer and he stays 3 years, and he decides to transfer to Charleston. That 3 years goes with him.
right,
And he can work 17 years in Charleston.
Right.
And retire it as long as he was 50, retire with those 20 years of service, 3 from Dunbar, 17 from Charleston.
so new hires, it gives them a better option where
Right.
these guys are kind of locked in that if they.
But I don't know, but I think that's both. I think you have a better option for those guys, but I think also what you end up having to do is what the police department has happened, is you have guys jumping all over the place. You'll have a guy who'll come here, get his training, and then 3 years later, go to Charleston, or go somewhere else. I think you'll end up having that issue as well, which I'm not saying, obviously, we have to close the issue to go to that.
Well, the answer is we have to start treating them better. Because they're not locked in.
And you all have to pick somebody up in Charleston or something.
Yeah, and you know, why you can't
Because
have
of our
stuff like
pension
that?
plan, why you can't do it.
Exactly right. Which there's no denying, I mean, we gotta do something, I don't know, the conservation method just.
The optional conservation are basically the same thing. It just takes a bunch of money.
Yeah, I mean,
The current plan we're in, it stops the problem with the 107% growth every single year, that everybody goes in and just drags that fund out forever.
right,
So it becomes more of a long-term liability for the city than closing that plan and going. Now, whether it's the optional or the conservation plan, it's just a matter of where we can get the money and how fast we can get it. If we go with the optional plan, we've got to generate the money within a very short period of time
Start July 1.
because you're going to almost $800,000 a year from force into four. Whereas with the conservation plan, if we dedicate the money and pull it over in the side and then build up the reserves, helps take care of a catastrophic event, and it's not such a huge shock on the general fund and the other expenses that we have going on. I mean, we can, step the increase in, but that's something that we'll have to kind of work out in the details, not necessarily tonight, but we're having budget meetings and stuff coming up that, we've got to have a decision coming up real soon when we set the budget for next year's, which way are we going and how are we going to get there?
Larry, just on the practical side, when do we need to have a resolution passed for either plan? I mean, we'll start to hash it out, but when do we have to have a resolution passed in order to get time to have everything switched over by the July 1 and start a new budget year, new fiscal year?
Generally takes the state, the CPRB generally takes them probably 30 days to approve it, and then you can't start it until a month after the month they approve it. So if they approve it in June, you can't start until July. You hire anybody before July 1st.
So it would be nice for us to have a resolution, whatever way we go, passed by end of April, right?
Is it April or? If we would pass at
First
the end
reading.
of,
Because we have to have 2 readings.
right, if we do it in May, and they take them 30 days, it has to at least be,
End of
the
April.
latest would be the first meeting in May,
Now,
latest.
Now, the thing that we have to look at, if we're going to tie some type of funding mechanism to this, other than taking it out of the general fund, I'm not sure where it is, but we would also have to have a public hearing during that whole process to implement some kind of a fee or a rate or something. Yeah, that's we do it. Yes, I mean, so that all that's going to come into play. So probably the sooner we start on it, come up with a decision, then it's easier to implement by.
And the resolution you pass, and you've done this one before, although some of you all may not have been on council at the time, maybe close from the police master plan, but that resolution is a resolution that is dictated by Consolidated Public Retirement Board. They will send you the resolution to pass.
Right.
Okay? Whatever else you do in terms of fees or whatever, those are
Right, that's
separate.
separate.
I just want to make sure you,
You have to almost start in March in order to get done by
Absolutely.
April. March would be the latest that you could start to get a public hearing, to get your 2 or 3 readings, and to get your resolution. And so in order for it to all happen before July 1st, you're going to have to start the 1st of March.
Larry, in the memo you gave us a while ago, I just got this scan, but you had 5 scenarios. You care to allude to those just to give us something to think about as we look at 5 different scenarios?
It's something that Brian and I worked on last year. I'll give you all some copies of it just a little bit. We looked at some of the options about throwing some money at this thing and what would happen. Say if we just put $300,000 contribution and pay $40,000 a month and $480,000 a year. Under the current plan, we begin to, this is under the conservation plan. We would be upside down by 2031. So that, just putting a little bit of money in up front didn't work. The next thing I looked at was $500,000 initial contribution, paying the 580, or the 480 per year until 2027, then increasing it to $500,000 per year. That gives us 2 more years before we start going upside down. Then we looked at $500,000 initial contribution, $500,000 per year. That added 2 more years to 2034. And then we said, okay, let's put in $700,000 initial contribution, 480, and then going the same thing, increasing it to 500. And that just, there again, takes us to 34. If we go to 700 plus the 500 per year, that takes us to 2035. And then I looked at the other option of paying 500 or 480 a year until 2025. In addition, the municipal fee would be increased by $25 per quarter, generating approximately $380,000 per year that would be dedicated to the fund. This option allows us to continue all other city services without disruption over the years. You should note that if the investment earnings are growing as projected, the city can begin reducing the 480 to hedge on inflation costs for the rest of the city down the road. It also provides a safety valve in the event the investment earnings are not growing as projected. We can keep the 480 payment in place. And then I printed them out, and then I've got some copies of some long sheets if you all want to look at these. And
I think we would have to, as council, in perspective of citizens, will come to this practical side on the budget, start at 500 a year, which is only 25,000 more than we're going right now. With a good aid. And at the same time, while we ask the citizens for 25 per quarter, 100 per year per household, we would need to also match that with at least $250,000 down front that we can pull from some of our extras this year and some of our investments we've got to show that to the citizens, we're not just only grabbing more from you, but we're willing to, some of our roll-up excesses or whatever, we may not be able to do a quarter, maybe 100, but whatever, show some kind of initial investment out of, that hurts us a little bit too, to show them that we're not just asking more out of you, but also we're going to put some down in front. That's just, I'm just brainstorming, really, that's what we're doing. Because then we just ask for more from them and not make some sacrifices on our side and we'll have more complaints.
What this basically did was charted everybody out for, everybody was about 90 years old, or their spouse was 90 years old, and showing what the obligation on the payout scenario with a 2.5% COLA increase every year or so. So you can actually see where the where from that standpoint it's a fairly rational number as long as we don't add more people into the program and they go into the peers program. I mean, this takes care of all the existing people in the plan. But just a rough take. Yeah, it's not actuarially correct, but it's just a general scenario as to what goes on. As I said, we do have this on live stream, so we would encourage you, anybody that has questions, citizens or anybody, to pull it up and watch what's going on here this evening. And the thing that I want to, for those that are watching, is point out that as a result of Dunbar having a fire department, we're currently, what, class 6 or 7? It's our ISO rating.
ISO 3.
Yeah.
3?
Yeah.
Okay. And the best you can get is 1. So if we don't maintain the quality of fire service that we're maintaining, your homeowner's insurance is going to increase substantially every single year. So the investment that we've been making over the decades in the fire department and the training of the people and the equipment is reducing what you pay out every single month on your insurance. to maintain the insurance on your home. So, you know, we're just, in my opinion, we're asking the people is to increase the investment that they're making in the protection of their homes and the reduction of their insurance ratings by helping fund this liability.
Yeah, because if they don't pay it this way, they're going to pay with the increase in their fire ratings. So.
Right. And that's what we don't want to see is reduction of service for anything. We're starting to get some roads fixed and some other things done. And we're keeping our salaries increasing on our employees. And quite honestly, you know, we could probably freeze raises for a couple of years and throw some more money at this, but that's not a solution. You know, that doesn't help you today. Okay, anything else?
There's flood insurance. It keeps going up every year.
I just really think we need to really look at this hard, because these guys need our support. And, you know, whatever we need to do, look at the options.
The only thing I would really like to see know that we are actively and/or, I'm not sure how we do it, getting the people that own all the rental property to make sure they're paying what is in the city. Because if we're gonna send the bill to the 70-year-old retired lady and she's gonna pay the extra $100, I'd just like to know that the rental people are also paying that. They can put that, add that into their rent, get the money back themselves. They're already getting money from HUD and everywhere else.
We can say it, you know, that's all we can do. I mean, I would like to agree with you if there's a way to do it, but
We're,
you know,
I mean,
I think
we're doing
we're-
everything we can do.
make people try to pay the bills.
We have people in magistrate court who are garnishing their wages, and they are coming in and paying some big bills. But, you
I'm
know,
just saying it'd be nice to be able to identify the rental properties. You know, they're making big money and they're not paying, some aren't paying BOs, some aren't.
And we've been doing that. Now we're putting them in the homeowners thing.
Let me ask a practical question again, so that we're in line with the dates that Connie mentioned. Do we need to call, and I know we hate to call special meetings, but in lieu of our whole year budget, if we can solve this problem, one more extra meeting is very small. If it can help us solve it, all the money we're spending now. Should we have one more special meeting sometime in the next few weeks, or maybe the first week of March or something, where we're, after we've had time to think on this, talk about it, absorb some of these things some more, and then come back and try to develop, you know, where we can, we have to break it down 2 or 3 ordinances, but to do these things.
next week we have the budget prep meeting.
Yeah, on the 19th.
On the 19th. So I think it's,
But there wouldn't be time in that meeting, I don't think, on covering so much of the budget.
well, I mean, but we will have a better handle on where the money is in the budget and what we're going to do, which I think will help us. Then at that meeting, we can set and determine, you know, in a week or 2 weeks after that meeting, come together and get a firm fixed schedule and plan as to what we're going to do. I think
I still want to miss that July 1, because if we miss July 1, then you're really another year down the road. And so,
Well, I mean,
No, you can do it anytime you do it.
I know you can do it anytime, I'm talking about human nature.
I understand that.
Because after you pass July 1, some things don't get resolved until the next July 1. So I'm talking about our human nature.
Sure.
Not picking on them, it's just the way it happens.
guys, any other questions, comments?
I mean, we understand that we've got a problem that we've got to fix. We appreciate you all addressing it. This is more than what we've got accomplished in the past, and we do appreciate each and every one of you all for actually taking time to sit down with us at this and look at it and try to get this resolved whichever way we got to go. And we're willing to work with you all, whatever you need from us. So.
Well, I think I can openly speak for this council that we're committed to resolving this problem now instead of just looking at coming up with a rational solution that's going to fix it and take care of it. That we can commit to something that we know that we can we can fulfill our end of it. But as long as we're involved in it.
And from your side, remember, whichever way we fund it, from our side, because we're the funders, essentially, you're all protected by law on your side, whichever way you go. I mean, sometimes it comes to lawsuits down the road, but the law is on your side, whichever funding method we go with. You have resources against whomever may follow us in office. Because whoever follows us is under law required to make your payment according to your contract, whether it's through conservation or whether it's through optional or if you just quit paying and go home. But, so the burden's on us. For your all side, am I correct, Blair, that they're protected, even if it gets nasty sometime in the future, they are protected?
You all have an obligation.
That's what I'm saying, I mean, the burden's on us. We may differ over how to fund it,
Ultimately, the burden is on
but
you.
it's our, we're the one in the hot seat.
You all got the bad fortune of being in office at this time because of what happened from the results of alternative funding. It's-
I don't think it's this time. I think it's just been a historical problem. I mean, it's just like a lot of issues you see that are not pleasant to make. Everybody just puts it off until it's just.
But that's what I mean, it happens in the time frame that it's now, and we all know
Right,
something.
ain't gonna get a vote.
It's been a cumulative.
Sorry, I'm just saying.
Pardon?
It's been a cumulative issue. People have not wanted to deal with it.
Well, the sad thing and the good thing is, if they were like the police department and they quit after 3 or 4 years, we wouldn't be in this problem. But, I mean, the good thing is we've had a good, loyal force that stayed and worked for the city, been involved with the city for 20+ years and earned their pension. It's our responsibility to make sure they get it.
Absolutely.
Okay. There's nothing else to come before the board, council.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
There you go.
Not a blanket, right?
Back. Can you push the top button on the
Put it on the mouse.